Thank you all for coming. If I speak like this, can everyone hear comfortably? Is anybody going to say they can't? Okay. Yes. I can speak closer to the microphone? Okay. Again, thank you all for coming, and as I look around the room, most of you know my name is Elizabeth Sutherland, and I am co-chair of Mobilize Eastern Maine here in the Greater Bangor region, and we really appreciate you coming today to join us to hear President Fitzsimmons talk about the Maine Community College system and their plans for the future and helping Maine bridge the skills gap. As much like I look around the room and I see many faces I know, I'm sure that President Fitzsimmons needs very little introduction for most of you, but let me just go through some highlights. President Fitzsimmons joined the Maine Community College system in 1990. Under his 23 years of leadership, the community college system has played a significant role in enhancing educational opportunities for Maine adults and career-oriented high school students. In 2003, his vision to transition Maine's technical colleges into full-fledged community colleges won the overwhelming and unprecedented support of the Maine legislature and of Governor Baldacci. In July of 2003, the system officially became Maine's community college system. Since that time, enrollment has increased 83%, making Maine's community college system the second fastest growing community college system in the nation. And this year's enrollment stands at roughly 18,500 students. Most recently, Maine Community College System acquired land and facilities at the former Brunswick Naval Air Force Air Station and at Goodwill Hinckley. These transactions have led to the establishment of 2 new off-campus locations through the acquisition of properties valued at more than $100 million and the capacity to add over 5,000 students. Dr. Fitzsimmons has spent the last 35 years in the field of higher education and training. Prior to his current post, he served as Maine's Commissioner of Labor under Governor McKernan, and he received numerous national recognitions, including the prestigious National Alliance of Business State of the Year Award for his innovative programs in human resource development. Dr. Fitzsimmons resides in Falmouth, Maine, with his wife, Lynn, and they have 2 grown sons, JB, who lives in the DC area, and Ryan, who is in Boston. So with that, welcome.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here this morning. Larry shared with me your goals for the year, like actually the next few years. It's very impressive, very ambitious things you're hoping to do, but I wish more regions of the state were as organized as you are and what you're about to take on. I also thank you for getting me out of Augusta. This is very much appreciated. It's the beginning of the dock season as we have to work so hard with the legislature. So thank you very much for getting me up here. Here's what I'd like to do this morning with you. I'm really here to answer your questions, but I'd like to at least talk a little bit about what the community colleges are, talk a little bit about our system, talk about the skills gap, of course, and then some of our goals. But I promise I'll do that in 10, 12 minutes, and the rest of the time is wherever you wish to go. I'll be glad to try to address that. Let me begin by asking, has anybody in this room attended a community college? Okay, 2 people, okay. Well, let me put it in context, because a lot of what you'll hear us talking about, it'll make sense by understanding the origins and why we are so focused on the population we serve and the directions we take with our system. First, community colleges are a true American invention. It began in 1901 by Dr. Rainer Hopper, and he was the president of the University of Chicago. And here's what was going on. He was getting students coming to his great university that were not prepared to do the basic work that he needed. And so he came up with the concept that he would divide his college into 2 parts. Part 1 would be for how do you lift people's academic skills, and also offer terminal training programs that would put people out in the economy. And he called that junior college. And the last 2 years were the senior college. That was the birth of the community college movement across the country. It caught on in a few places, but it didn't really take off until after World War II. And under the President Truman, they had a commission to look at how are we going to address the 1 million veterans coming back to this country who were not prepared for the economy. The world, the places they worked had changed, and their skill sets didn't match up. And so the Truman Commission said the answer was the creation of vocational technical high school, or colleges, I should say, across the nation. And that's where they really got the biggest bang as they moved up. The next big leap for community colleges came in the 60s, and that was really to address another technological revolution going on in our workplaces. We also had return of Vietnam veterans, and GI Bill had changed at that point. World War II veterans, the GI Bill paid for the college you got accepted to. The GI Bill for Vietnam veterans, which I am one, it paid you a stipend. And so, like anyone else, veterans shopped around to find the lowest price they could to get the education they needed, and many of them went on to the community college system. In fact, it was such a push that they were adding one community college a week across the nation. We in Maine added 5. Our first was in 1946, Governor Hildreth. There was Augusta VTI that is now called Southern Maine Community College. It moved down to Fort Preble. And then in the 60s, we added 5 colleges, vocational technical institutes, to respond to exactly what I just told you. But across the nation, community colleges, there are 1,100 community colleges, and they enroll more than 50% of all the undergraduates in higher education. So they're a significant player for our country. Quick overview of our system. 7-college system. We have 8 off-campus centers, which means we have staff and people to offer courses. We are within 25 miles of 92% of the population of our state. Our total budget is $170 million, $54 million from the state. We have 900 full-time employees and about another 1,000 adjunct faculty. We did transition in 2003 from technical to community colleges. We were one of 3 states in the nation who did not have community colleges, so we have been in catch-up mode ever since. And since 2003, our enrollment has increased by 83%. So we've had significant growth, and that makes sense. The gender split is 50-50. That's very important to Maine. Believe it or not, Maine is last in the nation of young men enrolled in higher education. Last in the nation. Significant problem. Everybody overlooks. It's going to catch up with us in the near future. So we're pleased we're at 50-50. If you look at most higher ed in Maine, you'll see, other than the little Ivies, because they control what they do, everybody else will do about 65 to 70% women enrolled in higher ed, and the difference, of course, is men. Our average age is 27. 38% of our students come directly from high school, so the vast majority of our adults who are coming to our system. We, in the state of Maine, 5,200 students left high school enrolled at either the community colleges or the universities. And the students who came to us, that was 2,100. 1,000 need remediation. 50% of those who graduated in June showed up in September need remediation in order to be successful. Remediation means taking less than 100 level courses in order to do college level work. Their families, because they're young, their families spent over $400,000 for them to take that remediation, so it's a significant issue for them. We still enjoy a 93% job placement rate, 92% placed here in Maine, so even in a bad economy, we've always been between 93 and 96. We've never dropped below 93, so I'm very pleased with that. Our tuition is $2,500, and that has been a tremendous challenge for us because we have frozen at 8 out of the last 14 years. We now have the lowest tuition of any higher educational institution in all of New England, and there's a reason. $2,500, 82% of our students are on financial aid at $2,500 a year. Now, why we kept it down was real simple. We were smart enough to hire a group from out of state to come in and look at the ability to pay of our students. And you understand, believe it or not, keeping tuition down is not a popular move other than for students. not within my own family, and I look at Ann, it's a son, right, Ann? Within the university, there's a lot of pressure about tuition. I get pressure within the legislature about, you know, you got all these people queued up, raise your tuition, get a chance to serve. And here's what we found out. If we raise tuition $2 a credit hour, that's $60 a year marginal impact. $5 a credit hour, $150 a year, we lose 22% of our students. I believe that is our role to have the affordable entry point for higher education. Our promise to Maine is that we will keep our tuition the lowest in New England until Maine incomes are no longer the lowest in New England. So as long as that stays low, we're going to stay low. All right, the challenges ahead are real simple. Most of you are familiar with the study by Georgetown University, and this, let me start nationally and then I'll weave it back to Maine. 60% of all the new jobs to be created between 2010 and 2020 will require post-secondary education. And this study also looked at from 1980 to 2020, the skills gap is growing every single year. By 2020, there'll be 20 million jobs going unfilled in our nation because people lack the skills to fill those posts. Now, here's what it means to us. And I only talk about the community colleges. If the chancellor joins you, he would give his perspective on what it means to be a university. In Maine, if you look at, they're saying Maine will be 59% will require post-secondary education by 2020. That would mean we would need 136,000 Mainers with associate degrees, and now we have less than 75,000. So we've got a tremendous road ahead of us in order to get more people educated and be ready for where the jobs are going. And I know you're all familiar with this number, it's been tossed around for a while. 37% of Mainers own a college degree compared to 46 for New England. To get from 37 to the New England average, that would be 40,000 more Mainers taking a college degree. So significant challenges ahead for us if we stay with what we're doing. Let me quickly hit on the goals of the system. Because we got a late start at being community colleges, we're not even at the national average. When you look at percent of enrollment based on our state's population, Maine should have 30,000 students in its community college system. Today we have, after growing 83% for a decade, we're at 18,500. So we're not even close to where we need to be to serve the state that would be like other states. So we have set a goal to get our system from 18,500 to 25,000 in the next 5 to 7 years. And then after that, the goal is the journey to get to 30,000. The challenge has been quite significant because our state budget hasn't kept pace at all. In the last 5 years, we've added 5,000 students, and our state budget is up 2%. 5,000 more students. State gave us 2% over 5-year period. They just announced the budget. It's frozen for 2 years. 7 years at receiving only 2%. In 2000, the state represented about 50% of my budget. Today it's 31%. The state is going from being a majority stakeholder to a minority stakeholder and dropping. So all of this we're doing in higher ed is on our own backs, and what we're doing, presenting greater challenges if you want to run a public institution. And I just told you that we made a commitment to keep tuition down. So if the state isn't the state coming with money, you're not going to raise tuition. Now you understand the box we're in. To make it even more challenging, for the last 2 years, last 2 falls, we turned away 4,000 qualified Mainers each of the last 2 years. That means they applied, we would have accepted them, but we can't accept them because we don't have room in the end to serve them. Okay, now, a couple of moves, and Elizabeth touched a little bit on it, but let me do this. Let me talk a little bit about a couple of moves that we've made to at least position our system for when the logjam breaks, and I'm really referring at the legislative level, for us to take off in the future. Yes, the addition of Brunswick was a magnificent opportunity for us. We took over $77 million worth of buildings for free. The Navy really takes care of itself. The buildings were overall in magnificent shape. And we expect that campus, which enrolls, it's called Midcoast Campus, run by Southern Maine Community College, Today, this fall, they just opened up with 360 students. It can handle at least up to 3,000, actually can go more like 4 or 5 if they so choose. The issue will be hiring more faculty to teach. Great facilities, money to cover the basic operations. We need money to hire more faculty. In the middle of the state, I guess you are the middle of the state, but south of you, I'm showing my family bias, all the way to Bangor this morning, and I'm only in the middle. Next month I'll be up in Presque Isle. I'll remember fondly going through Bangor. Is that tears in my eyes is on the way back, the sign that says 120 miles to Bangor. I get tears in my eyes every time I read that. All right. We've also, we're very fortunate to pick up some property at the Goodwill Hinckley campus. That was a 2,400-acre campus. We purchased 600 acres, 13 buildings. It was a gift through the Harold Alfond Foundation. They gave us $10.8 million to buy the facility, renovate the buildings that we've taken over, and then put up a new classroom building at the campus. It also has a 300-acre certified organic farm on the campus, so lots of interesting things. One of the areas that we're going to get serious in New England eventually is growing our own food. That's an issue I'm not an expert in, but I read enough that we kind of left that whole area, and we're going to pay it dearly. New England's got to wake up about growing their own. So a lot of the traditional farming going on and a lot of the organic is a nice opportunity for us to reposition it. So we will offer the first 2-year associate degree in sustainable agriculture. It will start next fall on the Kennebec Valley Community College. It's one of 2 in New England, the other is Vermont. The last thing that I think we did well to position ourselves for the future was the creation of a new statewide foundation. And community colleges are kind of new to raising money, although they've been around. We've had foundations at our college level, mostly in annual campaigns, but not a lot of major fundraising campaigns, although there have been some. So I was very fortunate that Leon Gorman, the chairman of the board of LOB, was on a study group to look at the community colleges. They're the ones who came up with the recommendation for us to go to 30,000 and how you do it. He fell in love with the system, thought it was a gem that was not known well in our state. And he said, look, there's a better way to raise money. Why don't we form a statewide foundation? We'll help organize it. We will spend time. In fact, his wife, Lisa, is the vice chair of the foundation. It's chaired by Governor McKernan, my former boss. In 2.5 years, we've raised $23 million for the system. So we've been very fortunate to have some of the best companies in our state step up and put a lot of money into our colleges. What surprised me, because although I've raised a lot of money in my life, I was assuming it was going to be a lot of endowments. It is not. It was for immediate infusion into the colleges. They weren't interested in creating endowments, which $1 million would generate $50,000, $45,000, $50,000 in interest a year. So they want their $1 million to go in now, which is a great fortune to us. So my last point I'll make, and then I'll go to any place you wish. I truly believe in the state. I think the innate talent, the hard work of the people there, it really is us accepting that the world has changed around us. Our workplaces have changed. We need to invest more in our own workforce in order to be successful. Understanding that, we have to get out of how we've always operated. And right now, we've come to a time that it isn't just a few creating a job for the many. It is a continual educated workforce, all finding their position in our economy. If we don't take this on, we're going to be left behind. And if you read the recent article by Governor Duval out of Massachusetts, he just announced putting $1.5 billion into current and future workforce. He sees it as that critical issue facing Massachusetts. If that's what our competition is doing, it's time for us to wake up and do something. I will end also by saying thank you. You're doing a lot of good things. I read the report. Keeping a focus on the prize is probably the most important thing you can do. 23 years, 3 with Governor McKernan, 26 years in Augusta. let me tell you what I know. Their ability to miss the obvious is astounding. So, and I'm talking about Democrats, Republicans, Independents. We need to focus them on the obvious. If Maine people need the skills to get into the jobs, and the jobs are going unfilled, I think it's time to address this. Thank you very much. I'll go wherever you wish to go.
So we'll start with some questions, if anyone has. Okay.
Start off with one is you've added two. You talked about two new sites that you added, but yet only a limited raise in your operating expenses. How are you covering the? It's great to get free properties or inexpensive or affordable properties, but you've got to operate those once you get them. How are you incorporating that into the system?
Yes, what we've been able to do both in Brunswick and Hinckley is we had a reallocation of some of our own resources to ensure we had the basic operating, to keep the lights, the heat, cut the grass, safety, security, all that other. What we have, and I understand, either someday someone will say, that was a heck of a great move. Or someday someone will say, what a foolish move taking on those two sets of property. Knowing what we have to do in numbers of people we need to enroll, we needed to take advantage of those two absolutely golden opportunities that came our way. I believe that the road to a stronger middle class, the road to a stronger economy, all go through the community colleges. You can dance any place you want on all these issues. Eventually you're going to come home and realize it's about skilling this whole group of Mainers who are left out of the future. When that happens, we have the facilities. Give me the money to hire the faculty to teach. That's what we need.
Any other questions?
Just in the last part of what you just said, you indicated sort of the financial component of it. When I look at programs that we've run from hospitals in the last little while, that seems to be the big key. Now, we were fortunate in the last couple of years to have something like the healthcare sector grant fund. But the difficulty that we face now is sustaining programs that we've created, where to get that funding. Do you have any suggestions?
Now, forgive me if I sound with the little rose tint glasses. I'll take them off so you won't assume that. I actually think there's some possibilities on the way, and that is the creation of the new joint task force on the workforce, legislative task force on the workforce and the economy. This is the first time in 10 years I've heard people start talking about the skills gap and what we need to do and where we need to invest. If I could ask your organization and Mike's and others, the best thing we can do is fire up this commission to take this issue on. Because it's dead serious. They understand that Mainers are not having an opportunity to fill those posts. Employers are making tough decisions. I talked to several IT companies in southern Maine that unless we produce more graduate level IT students, they're going to move their businesses out of state, or the portion of their business that requires that kind of programming to Vanderbilt, where they have a surplus of people in that area, and other parts of the country. So we have to protect our own if we want to be successful. The best thing we can do, and I remember a quote by Governor Sununu when he talked about the best economic development is growing your own. Very simply, it's this. The companies that are here that made a commitment to Maine, man, let's do everything we can to make them successful. There are people, they want to be here. So yes, try to bring some new ones in. I'm a big fan of that. But I want to take care of the ones that are here who made the commitment. So if the hospitals and others need healthcare workers, we got to finances for them. We all depend on them. I know Ann, and not just because Ann is here, you raised the question. Healthcare is the #1 job here in the state of Maine, will be for the next 10 years. So it's a critical industry for us to be supportive. But I also want to see machine tool. I know Steve Pound is here. We want to see the construction area being supported. There are areas all over the state that we need to do something about. We have about 200 programs. that's then duplicated between colleges, so it drops the number down. But there's 86 of them are already tapped out with enroll as many students as we can. And then all the fields, all healthcare, that's a given. And then you get into computers, you get into machine tool, you'll get into culinary arts, you'll be surprised. It's all over the gamut that people are queued up to get in.
Mike?
John, from a systems perspective, could you comment on how regions of the state, which those of us in economic development are beginning to focus on, what are the sectors that are going to drive us for the next 30 years? As we begin to focus on developing infrastructure for those business sectors to grow, how do we align that so that with the necessary academic work that needs to take place in the K-12 system as well?
Yeah, I think, I'll try to work, that's a great question, Mike, so let me try to work in a couple of parts. One is I think there has been a tremendous disconnect, particularly between higher education and K-12, and I'll talk a little bit about that, it'll make sense. I also think you have to look at the economic drivers, and of course you're the pro on that, not I, but the economic drivers in a region, the ability to have a rural hospital that is doing well in jobs and all the dollars it creates to do well. One of the programs that we offer is called a Rural Initiative, where we bring a 2-year associate degree out to rural Maine. And healthcare is the first 7 that we put up because the workers of Rumford want to know that they have an opportunity to be a nurse in that area, and we provide that. I think it's one is knowing the drivers in the area. Second is the spillover for can we get a critical mass. And third is the ability to communicate that you have an educated workforce who are willing to work hard and are willing to fill the posts they have. If I was an employer and I was looking at a region, I would look at, do you have the skill sets I need? Where's the supply? Yes, you might meet my short-term need, and Mike knows about quality centers because he's actually helped run the program earlier in his career. But how do I sustain having a workforce coming through that we need to address? So let me get a couple more points to come back to K-12. I think between us and higher ed, we have to work more closely with economic development and with the business community to talk about what we offer, how does it match up. Second is how do we become, particularly small businesses. I know Steve Pound's here, and he's with a large corporation, has his own training division. 90% of Maine businesses are 50 or less. They don't have training, they don't have a human resource department. So the ability for us to talk about how we can align and become the training facilitators becomes critical for us. So critical mass, make sure you have the right supply of workers for that industry, and us aligning what we're offering. The last part is a very big challenge of looking at what we're doing or not doing with K-12. There's a lot underway. Some of it I think will make a big difference. Others, sometimes it appears like another plate spinning. But from my perspective, aligning the curriculum so that students know what higher ed needs, it's very interesting. It would be like me applying to your company, not understanding what you want for the post and say, here's my resume, hire me. You say, but you don't align with what I need. So guess what? You're not coming here. So in higher ed, there's the distance between K to 12 is they don't know exactly what we say is college ready. So we're beginning those discussions, and there's a few areas that we've actually done it in depth that makes a difference. On the CTE, the Career and Technical Education, it really will be about aligning what they teach into a community college. While some of the students will come out and find employment, a lot of them are going to want to go on to an associate degree to enhance their opportunities, so that if you align the curriculum, we can accept some of the credits being taught in high school onto our college, and from our college out to the world of work. The same is true. So it's not just me pointing fingers. We got to be better with our university system. The transfer stuff is good. The presidents who come from out of state will tell you, my presidents, it's better than most states, but it's still got a ways to go. And so every one of our students, of which there were 830 last year that went on to the university system, we want more of them to do so. one of the crises in the state is the lack of baccalaureate. So the ability to get more people into baccalaureate education is critical for our state. And beyond that, graduate is another issue that we face. So aligning what we do to go on to the university becomes critical. I know the chancellor is working right now very diligently at the request of his board to align within the university itself how they match up. Following that, we'll talk about how we match up also. But I want to tell you, we have, the last 3 years, we've sent our students to 140 different institutions in 40 states. So from Harvard to Bates to Simmons, you name it, our students are off to. So we think we do a very good job of preparing people and sending them on to institutions all over. And in tough economic times, their families are making choices just on economics alone to say, I'll take my first 2 years with you, and then I'll go on and transfer on to the university. But in the end, I will tell you, I will be the biggest advocate for more baccalaureates than anyone else. Well, probably not as much as the chancellor, but at least not far behind pushing baccalaureates. It needs to happen.
Just a quick question, President Fitzsimmons. Last year, EMCC locally saw a 7% increase in enrollment. They're doing tremendous work, faculty and staff. It's become clear that they're plateauing out. Be interested and certainly appreciate your taking advantage of in-campus opportunities, bringing it back locally. Are there any plans from the community stakeholder level to provide additional dedicated revenue locally to help expand?
Yeah, the way we handle resources in the community colleges is that as new resources come into our system, we take care of the base operations of our 7 colleges. Any new money goes out by where the demand is. So if you looked at how our budgets have changed, you will see Southern Maine has grown, KV has grown. Bangor did not grow as much, and although it's a very, very good institution. Larry, they grow only 3% or 4% in that decade. And Larry's last couple of years, 5, it was 7 last year, 5 the first year, 7 this year. So they're catching up compared to others. The point is, when resources were available as they came, they went to where the growth was going. The good news for you, this region, is Larry has understood that, he's growing. I see them as a priority as we move forward. There's no question about it. And that's, I won't say that across the state. There are regions of the state that we will just maintain, and that's a great thing to do. But they won't grow as much. They won't get as much bond money because where the growth is where we have to supply it.
Any additional, John?
The governor seems rather enamored of the bridge year concept. You want to comment on that?
Yes, it made it into his budget, along with monies or the other money for the career education at the K-12 level, money for college transition, money for JMG, Jobs for Maine's Graduates. Very interesting. All sorts of money to send more people to the community colleges where they're all queued up and they can't get in. So the good news is they're making some investments and sending people on. I won't get into the private conversations. What I've said is they will be in line like everybody else to come in. If you've been waiting 3 years to get into a healthcare program, I'm not telling somebody coming in for this other program, you're jumping line. Now, the Bridge Year project, it is in the budget. If you read the language in the budget, it's exclusively designed for what they put together in Herman, which I understand that's the one they're excited about. What I will tell you is it does not align for us, so that's the first issue we'll face. 95% of what we offer is in programs is occupations. You could never do it within that time frame, so it doesn't align with what we're doing. So it will be mostly on the liberal studies. That's what it is now. It's all liberal studies, humanities courses. As you'll see up in Fort Kent, they have a similar program. It's all liberal studies, so it doesn't align with the occupation. Second is, and I respect that they like the model, because we were not involved at the state level to talk about how you take it from scale. It presents a second challenge. My wonderful new president over there was working on this project, so he accepted what they're doing there and has been working with them. He has 32 high schools in his jurisdiction. How do you go to scale? Let me explain. Maybe you don't, I'm sorry. Let me back up because it's really important to understand how this works. When we deliver courses in a high school, it has to be under the auspices and controlled by higher ed. Our accrediting body looks at that course, not that some high school is doing it, and by the chance it may align and give you credit. It is your program, so it is your course. So, do you know we actually have to issue badges to students so they can use our libraries, come over to our campus, have access to our facilities? The faculty who accept this, and Larry's group agreed on a project for 15, which is very different than going to 32 schools in his region. My faculty that are already overstrapped have to come in, make sure they approve who's teaching it, what the curriculum is, our textbooks, assess it, and evaluate it. Now you're asking us to go on a larger scale without any resources coming to the group that has to award the credit. Now let me add one more piece so I don't scare you about it. If we do not do it right, we're in harm's way with our accrediting body. The 18,500, the 82% of them are on financial aid, are in harm's way. This is not a light discussion. And so I applaud Larry for working here at a project. I think what they have, I wish him well, I think it makes sense. The good news, the legislation said it was for higher ed, so the universities, Husson, others may do it, but it doesn't align for the community college. And so we will take a different path in order to address it. I really want to be clear, I'm not critical of what they've done because they woke up with the wonderful intentions. Anyone who's built statewide projects understand what it means to go to scale. That's very different than having a group get together and doing some very good things. Then all of a sudden you say, well, how would you deliver that? It's like telling my appropriations, you're doing a heck of a job. You might now do in Vermont and New Hampshire's also, they do budgets. The first thing they say is, where's the staffing? How do we do it? How do we take it out to scale? You've changed our whole jobs. That's what it's about. More than you probably wanted, but an interesting one because it's a good example of good people working very hard, doing a very nice project at a local level. That it doesn't translate for us. Our universities may jump all over it, and I wish them well, because it's also, if we're going to build something statewide, I have to align with my occupational side. I have to, because that's the majority of my students, that's where the future is for Maine, and so I don't want to be out of sync. I don't want to have two models running within our system. It doesn't work for us. It becomes a nightmare to administer across the state. And if I can tell you right now, well, I'll look at Larry and say this. If Larry can tell me that his faculty who teach right now can take the Herman model and take it out all over his 32 high schools, then he's got me. I'm on board with it. The answer would be, no, we cannot. It does not decide to go to scale. You've got to go to scale.
Ben.
First of all, thank you for coming out. This has been very interesting today. I was in a meeting last week along with several people in this room, and the conversation sort of erupted around the notion of today's high school graduates being several years behind where they were 20 to 30 years ago. I wonder if you could comment on whether high school graduates are prepared for community college. And in particular, sort of a follow-up to that, I think of the community college system as being focusing on the hard technical skills to match up potential employee A with job A. I wonder if you could comment a little bit on the softer skills of interviewing basics, ability to get along with coworkers, personal initiative. Do you feel like high school graduates today have those?
Yeah, the first part of your question, hopefully, if I miss any parts, thank you. There's several questions there. The first part was the generational difference about better prepared or stronger students than not. I would tell you absolutely not. That's not the case. What has changed is that we've gone deeper into the pool of high school students and they have to align with the future. So as you go deeper into the pool, the jobs that they want to get into, they need stronger educational skills. We've kind of ignored that group. The group is called the drop-ins. It's just got to go through. And what happens is there's not a place for them in the new, not as much, many places for them in the future. And so that is what changed. We've gone deeper into the pool. We're looking at that. The fight for Maine, that's the group you want to fight for. If you look at the remedial issue, everybody was, there's a lot of fun in the state, all the stories of it. Most of them not doing justice to the very students who are doing it. For some students, they weren't engaged learners. And they woke up at 27 and they come back and they're engaged, and they do as well as anyone else. Second is some of the courses they decide. You want to be a machinist for us? You better be strong in math. And what did they do through high school? I hate math. They took all the least resistant courses they could in math, the easiest courses to get through, and graduated. And today they're looking at a place that pays $45,000 for a 2-year education to be a machinist, and they can't do it. They'll do is go to remedial work and work on their skills to get higher. So I think it's gone deeper into the pool. The economy has shifted, so it's forcing people to get those skills. They got the message, they're trying to come in. We've had decades of people out in the economy who don't have those skills. Maine has 90,000 people, 51,000 unemployed, 90,000 underemployed. I mean, there's a serious number of people who just are not prepared for where the future is going to go. The saddest thing we can do, if we do nothing, we'll be talking about a state of educational haves and have-nots. There's no question about it. And I want to be real clear. There's dignity in all work. I'm just talking about opportunities. When you have a family and you want to raise the right kind of money, you want to be in the occupations that pay well. At least you believe pay well, and at least have some level of security you can in very uncertain times. Is there
soft skills.
Oh, the soft skill. Thank you for raising that. When I began working the system in 1990, obviously we were technical colleges at the time. And one of the best things that ever happened for our system is we convened meetings with the private sector, and they were talking about our graduates. And here's what they said. We love them. They're very good, very talented. But the lack of soft skills, which is best taught in humanities, when we look at promotions, the team leaders, the managers, the people we want, the supervisors to move up, you need to have those soft skills. And that's in 1990, we were about 40% of what we offered was associate degrees, the rest were either diploma or certificate. Today it's 84% of what we offer are associate degrees, because 20% of an associate degree is humanities. It is a critical part of the future. So we have built it in for our occupational programs. Of course, now we have a transfer program that allows people to come on. I think that gets overlooked all the time, but the soft skills are better taught in humanities, and a lot of great things can happen if you strengthen that, and it's part of what you do for education. Now, let me say one other thing. There's a lot of great opportunities to get people some short-term skill training and get them in employment, and I applaud those. I wake up as an advocate for Maine's workers, and having an educated, credentialed worker is somebody who's got a stronger, better future from my perspective. So I applaud a lot of the short-term training continue, but our efforts are all on getting a credentialed workforce and have them ready for what I see as the change. In the end, what you see is the ability to say to an employer with your credential, I'm a learner and I can relearn as you change and going forward. May I tell one story that captures it all for me. In the 90s, I was pressured in the middle of the night very hard by a very large corporation that had 14,000 people working here to teach a limited prospective occupation that matched up with their needs. And I refused. I said, we need to prepare people on a broader level because we don't know where the future will take them. We don't know where the future of your company. That company today has 5,000 employees. Thank God we didn't follow the path to say we're going to produce 6,000 people with this skill only, and as the economy changed, they get left out of the future. It wasn't that it was going to be bad, but we have a different role that we play. And so I take pride in us looking at, from the worker's perspective, how do we align with the private sector, but also where will a worker find their place in the future?
Yes.
As the Director of Adult Education and Health, I'm curious how you see adult developing the skills gap.
Well, the first part, as you know, that's your profession, it's a little uneven adult eds across the state. From some who offer remedial to some who don't because of funding and other issues. I'm a big supporter of adult ed. I think we need to invest more, particularly from my perspective, a lot more in the remediation. If the community colleges could get out of the remedial work and not do it at all, I would take $1 million tied up in there and put it into more students coming to our colleges. So I'm a big fan of adult ed and what they do. I think on the skills gap is the second part you're talking about. I think they also play another role. They're the least expensive, less expensive than we are to match up with the training. Obviously, more of it would be 3 to 6 month training than it would be certificate, a year or 2 years of college. But it's very, I think there's 111 adult eds around the state about that. They're very uneven. Some of the big cities that you would think would offer a remedial program for their students, for their residents, it's not part of their adult ed. So that needs to be strengthened. I think are you involved with the color transition?
Yes, we were actually the county.
Oh, bravo, okay. You're getting this, governor had what, 450,000 in the budget for you? You're doing something right, you saw value in what you're doing. What's that say about us?
President Fitzsimmons, I have a question for you. I do represent K-12 education, so, and as you know, currently in our state, there's an interest in the Common Core, and there's a lot of people from a national level have a lot to say in how K-12 education looks like in the state. And I agree with you, there's a huge disconnect between us and you. We don't even talk to one another, and certainly it's hard for us to know how to prepare our students for your programs when we don't even have that conversation. Nevertheless, a lot of effort's being put into the state right now in trying to get us to align to the Common Core, whatever that is. It's kind of a holy grail. If we can find that, we unlock the key. You talked about the difficulty in trying to implement something statewide. Almost all our school initiatives are local initiatives. They are, how do you tweak your little school to fit the needs of the state, and the state tweak it to fit your needs, and so on. Have you given any thought to how perhaps K-12 and higher ed in this state could work more closely together so that we could reduce the number of students that are requiring remedial work when they show up in your doorstep?
Well, thank you. It's a really challenging question. Let me take it from this perspective. One of the things that we're working on right now is to look at every single program that we offer. What is the requirements in order to get into it? So from the academic side is the special testing, so that we can communicate to K-12, this is exactly what we need. So you have somebody that wants to get into radiology, to go on for that. So what is the acceptance for a community college? What are we looking for? So that your guidance people can work with your faculty to see how we're aligning. I think that is probably the best thing that we can do. The difference for me is this. The university produces teachers, so that they play a far bigger role about how they match up with you. I think for us, it is to tell you what we're looking for, because we look at graduation and what the private sector needs and how the person's going to land in the future. We need to communicate with you more clearly. This is what we're looking for and what doesn't work for us. Beyond that, I'm very cautious about stepping in the middle of what I think is the most difficult job in all of education, K-12. We, the community colleges, have paying customers who self-select, and it's tough. I can't imagine what it's like for a community. When you have who's ever in your community, you must find a path to them and make it work. So I come at this with nothing but respect for the difficulty. I think it's about us telling you what we're looking for and then looking at how it matches up. And I know there gets a lot of excitement about dropping in initiatives, and Mike and I, look at Mike because we've been together a long time, at least 25 years. We've watched people come through over and over who say we have the answer, and most of those reports are long gone. And a lot of the school systems heard about X and just waited it out, and then it changed to Y, and it moved on. I hope higher ed, all of us from Maine Maritime to the university that was, continue to partner, at least explain what we're looking for, and if anything, but nothing but respect for your hard job to send people to our way. I know that's what you wish, but it's an area